Hi guys, this is Sujit here. I thought I'll do a review of an angle grinder. So I have this Makita GA4530R and I bought it online through Screwfix. So it's available for around £40 or so and it's there in various other websites. So I've been doing some research and I did see that this particular model is a reasonably alright one for a DIY person. So Makita is a good brand. It's a good Japanese brand, and for this kind of a money, it should be all right. There's no point going for a cheapo 18-20 pound one. So my plan is to use it for a lot of DIY projects in and around the house. So it comes with a default metal grinding disc, and that's the body of it in the typical blue and black color. So that's the outer flange nuts, and that's the release mechanism for removing the nuts. So the body is pretty lightweight, right? And it's got an on and off switch over there. You slide that to the one position to switch it on, and that's the zero mark, and you slide it back in if you want to switch it off. So there's no variable speed in this, it's just a straight on or an off. So this is a 720 watt machine, so it is kind of powerful, and it takes in 11.5 centimeter discs. So other than the body, it comes with your wheel guard, and then it's got a handle. So you could slide it in either on the right hand side or on the left hand side based on whether you are left handed or right handed. So one interesting feature about this handle position is that it's not at 90 degrees, it's actually beveled at 110 degrees. So that'll give you a better grip while you're using it for grinding or cutting. So the other interesting piece, or the last piece in the box, is this particular thing, which is a prong which you use to tighten the nuts, the outer flange nut. So it's got two prongs there, which actually slides into the holes of the outer flange nut. That's basically it. That's the things in the box. So as I said, this is the metal grinding disc that comes with it. And because of my application, I need some other kind of disc, right? So I got these a mixed bag of grit paper. So this has got 40 grit over here, and the discs on the front are 60 grit. So you use this for removing rust and sanding and polishing. I also got a set of 5 spare angle grinding discs. I'm not even sure if I'll use it, but I bought it anyway. And these are the metal cutting discs. These are thin discs which you use to cut rebars or aluminium or sharp things like that. So this is the one which I'll be using right now in my project. So to fit the disc, what you have to do is press the button over there on the top, which will hold the outer flange nut in such a way that you can turn it loose. So you screw it off, and once the outer flange nuts are done, take the inner flange, and you can see there's an oval shape over there, or kind of rectangle shape, and this fits snugly onto the body of it. So while placing the disc, obviously make sure that the grinding surface of the disc faces downwards, and do not put it on the opposite way, because that's just gonna probably end up in tears and all that. So make sure you put your disc or your cutting blades the right way as mentioned in the documentation. Now before you put the disc, the number one thing is to make sure how you're going to cut it. So if you take the screwdriver as an iron rebar, and if I'm planning to chop through it, I will be using it in a rocking motion from up and down, and what I need is the wheel guards to be positioned in such a way that it protects my fingers. So you need to take the wheel guard and make sure that it faces backwards. So to do this, take the guard and slide it in facing upwards. There's a small groove there through which it turns backwards, and then what happens is when you tilt it, you'll see the exact position on how you want that to be. So make sure you turn it either up or down or 90 degrees or with a slight bevel. So this is the kind of angle I'm going to go for. So what you have to do next is make sure you tighten the screw over there. As always, make sure you don't over tighten it so that you don't lose any threads or jam it up and make a mess out of it. So once the guard is in place, make sure you take the inner flange and you see the bevel position. Make sure you slide it on top of the angle grinder body there and it locks in place. And then take the disc, slide it in, and the bore of the disc should actually align exactly to the inner flange outer section, if you get what I mean. Now the outer flange nut has got two directions. You can place it either way. So based on the application, make sure you use the right way down to hold the disc in place. So tighten it up with your hand first, and then what you have to do is take the spanner thing with the two prongs, slot it in the hole and tighten it up further so that it's rock harder and then it won't be going out anywhere. So that's the setup. Now regarding safeties, make sure you have used clamps, ear protection, dust mask, eye protection, gloves, and of course make sure the angle grinder is safe. So as you can see over here, right, the grinder went pretty smoothly across all those reinforcing mesh, and it's cut it pretty smoothly and very quickly, so I'm pretty happy with the performance. So what I'm going to do now is, since I've already finished cutting all the rebars, I'm going to change my metal cutting discs back to the original grinding disc. So now that the grinding disc is in place, I'll show you what I'm going to do next. So that's my old lawnmower. The plan is to sharpen the lawnmower blades and make sure that it's pretty smooth. You can see it's pretty much beaten up. A lot of holes by hitting the bricks, patio stones and whatnot. So I'm just going to clamp it on my garden bench, and then I use the grinder and use the rocking motion and make sure I shape it and sharpen the blade as well. So I did a couple of passes on one of the sides, and while I was doing it, the grinding disc actually came loose, so I had to tighten it up again. So this is not the fault of the Makita grinder, it's just because I didn't screw it up tightly in the first place. So now that it's tightened up, I just flip over the lawnmower blade again and do an equal number of grinding action on the other side as well. So the blades are sharp, and I'm just going to go back and tighten it up back on the lawnmower. Now that these blades are sharpened, what I'm going to do next is take up all my old garden tools that are rusty and which are blunt. So you can see that's a lawn shear, that's a garden shear, and the one on the other side is a bypass Lopper. So the case of the lawn shear, the entire blade is not completely, but sort of rusted, you can see that. And the blades also need to be sharpened up. In the case of the garden shear, it is rusty, and there's also a big gap between the blades. So I need to tighten that first and then go on with the angle grinder. So I have to smoothen even those blades up. Now with the bypass Lopper, you can actually see there's a huge gap in between the two blades. You could probably fit in 2 credit cards inside that. So the nuts have to be tightened up, and the blades as well. You can see that it's rusty and it's not sharp at all. Now to show you how these tools perform right now, what I'll do is I'll try and cut some branches or trees and then show you how it is. So with the shears, you can see it does make some good sound and all that, but it doesn't cut anything. Now with my garden shear, it's almost a similar thing, because the gap between the blades and the bluntness, it doesn't do anything as well. Now the bypass Lopper, I'll just try and cut a twig over here. So that's a nice crunchy sound, but as you can see, it hasn't done anything at all. So what I'm going to do is clamp it up on over here and tighten the nuts. So basically the bolt and the nut are just spinning around, so I just realized it after 5 seconds. So I held it with a clamp on one side and then went with the spanner on the other side, and finally I managed to tighten it up. So once I tightened this thing up, right, I clamped it back again on my garden bench, and with the Lopper now secure on the garden bench, I took my grinder and I started grinding the blades. Unfortunately, my hand is in the way of the camera, so you couldn't see much on that, but you can see over here what I'm trying to do. And there you go. So that's one more job done with the grinder. So next I took the garden shear. I did the same thing. I went over the edge with my angle grinder. I basically eyeball the same angle. You should probably do it in like a 5-degree or 10-degree angle pitch, but I did just what I could. Now I'm going to try this on some few blade of grasses and see how it goes. You can easily see it's just made a remarkable difference now. By tightening the nut and sharpening the blade, I'm able to again use these tools. So that's the final one. That's the edging shear. So what I did first is I tried to remove the rust from the back side of the blades, and they came off pretty easily. The rust is all superficial, so you can easily remove it. I clamped the one side of the blade and went on to sharpen the sharp side of the blade. So I removed all the dents from here again, and after that I went over the top and removed the rust. Again, once you tighten the nuts and sharpen the blade, it's almost as good as new. You can just go ahead and start using it. So that's an old beaten up chisel, which I thought I'll just clean it up, and that's it. The chisel's sharp again. Now here I'm going to remove the protruding bit of the iron rebar from my concrete. So when you use a cutting disc, you can actually cut through the metal and also go a little bit into the concrete. It's not going to damage the blade in any way. Now this is another angle. So that's all it took. Now I'll do a close-up and you can see that it's over there. So yeah, that's basically it. So I've used it around for a few little projects in and around my DIY project, and I do highly recommend it. So there you go, that's my review. Thanks for watching.